This is clearly a major cultural moment and a very controversial film, it seems like, but obviously it is
only controversial on YouTube.
Only
Not controversial with the audience.
Like,
and it
I
is
also,
not controversial with the people.
yeah, like
but
I
it
have
is
not
clearly
encountered
caught the
any
zeitgeist.
controversy with it myself, so yeah, it'll be interesting. It's just
There is no controversy here. But whatever.
All right, so then there we go. But regardless of what's happening on YouTube, it has caught the zeitgeist of the time, and is extremely popular. So that's a reason to study it and analyze it. And actually, I've got this quote I'll put from Cameron that I will put in the chat here. So Cameron, the reason I wanted to put together this conversation is because Cameron says that it is a universal tale of finding inner power and authenticity meant for both men and women. It is also one of the best scripts written in years, with incredible nuance, intelligence, social commentary, and humor. And as a writer, I revere good writing. I will teach Barbie in future screenwriting classes. So when I read that, I was like, well, all right. Well, we're all students of Cameron right here. Then I suppose
we are.
Well, you're not my students. You're my friends. You're my friends. I wouldn't go steal.
Maybe we're both, though.
So in that case, I wanted to pay attention to what Cameron had to say. It appears that I was the most critical of this movie of everyone that we're going to have on this panel.
We'll have a good counterbalance. That's good.
Yeah, so we'll be able to have the discussion. But like I don't want this discussion to be on and we can touch on it or whatever, but the culture war side in general, things like that's been talked about to death. We can talk about that. We can touch on that. But my critique is because my critique was predominantly from a structural side and the kinds of things that I thought that I had been learning. And there was a point in the movie where I just kind of got bored and I kind of tuned out, and I thought it was for structural reasons.
You got bored in this movie?
You got bored.
Yes, you got bored.
Yes,
and
I did.
I guess it's not for everyone, huh?
All right.
He's part of that 10% that didn't get it. Someone's got to be part of that 10%
of this who did not get it. So I guess I'm part. So I'll hold down that side of this.
There we go. We got our the whole perspective.
Yeah, I'll just say I did not expect. I assumed that I was going to hate this movie. I went in, and I know not to do this, but I was there mentally anyway. I thought I wasn't going to like it. I assumed I was going to be arguing against the movie, and I had all these notes written down before I saw it. And I had all these notes, and I had all these questions, and all that went out the window once I saw the movie, and I had to delete all that, and I have all my other notes because I ended up loving the movie, and I could not believe that I loved this movie, because I did not think, 1 in a million, I thought that I was going to react positively to this film, and I ended up.
Well, you had seen my review on my Patreon, and you were ready to come in and argue with me. Heath did argue with me, or at least to let me know that he was going to argue with me.
I was. I was like, I'm going to have to prepare myself
to love it.
Yeah. Well,
because of Cameron, I thought I was going to love it. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm dropping everything.
Your standards are too high. Well, you're that guy. Hey, Mikey, he liked it. You only eat life cereal. I get you, buddy. Whatever.
All right.
Well, let's talk about the story. Why do a lot of people love it? There's a reason structurally, but we're going to talk about story today. That's what I think the four of us are going to be here for. And I don't think it's possible to ignore political and social commentary because it's linked to the structure of how the story is told, right?
Okay.
I agree.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree. I think that I think they're linked in this case, and I think that because this is a cultural phenomenon, some of that culture war should be at least touched on or explored in discussing this, and why some people are taking such a strong negative reaction or assuming a negative reaction before they've seen it versus what's really happening, which is a juggernaut at the box office. And I went on Sunday. There were still people, men and women, wearing pink. It was like an opening night crowd. And
same thing yesterday. I watched it last night. Completely packed.
And I was listening.
I had to buy my tickets like on Wednesday, and I almost was too late.
Yeah.
They were running
I noticed a lot of the seats had already been sold out. And while sitting in the crowd, it was a fun crowd. They were laughing. They were enjoying the film. This was good spirits. This reminded me of what I used to love about going to the theater and feeling like you're part of something with everybody, enjoying this thing that's on the screen. I did not expect it. I didn't see it coming.
I had a similar feeling. I just want to say, like, real quick, like, it was cool. Like, on the opening weekend, I saw Oppenheimer first. Oppenheimer, I still don't know why. I can't wait
to see that.
But it was the Barbie phenomenon in both cases that was so like energizing, and it was so like it just warmed my heart as like a lover of movies to like come to the theater. It's been years since I've seen any theaters like as full as I did. Maybe it's because I don't normally go on opening weekends. I don't know.
Oh,
but
I don't.
It was just like, it was so cool. So much energy, so much like joy, and people laughing as they're coming out of the theater. They're laughing, they're talking. And I know it's just so cool to see that and kind of be a part of that moment, that cultural moment.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my notes was, is this, oh, go ahead, Cameron.
I just want to add this, and because I do want to bring us back to, at some point, we're going to start talking about story structure. There's a reason I think that there are people that were disappointed with this movie or outraged by things they heard about this movie, or what sat this. There's a small group of people who sat through this movie and didn't get it at all, right? I don't think Heath is in that group. I think he has structural story critiques, but there's people that literally didn't get the message, right? And I think it's because that not everyone got set up and payoff in this movie. There's a lot of setups that are paid off. People either missed the setup or they missed the payoff. And that's why they're thinking the message is the opposite of what it is, because they missed one of those two poles.
Well, so I've got notes about setup and payoff. Well, do you want to lead us off then, Cameron? Then lead us off with, like, start with this movie and its story structure and how it. I mean, Doug and I will sit down and go through a movie for 4 or 5 hours, and we start from the very beginning and we go through. But so I don't know how much time everybody has. Probably not that. But start with where you would want to start if you were teaching a class on this, because you said you would be interested in teaching this. Like, what would you say about this then? Let's start us off then, Cameron.
Well, before I do that, I'd interrupted Doug quite rudely. So, Doug, you had wanted to say something. I want to let you say that.
Oh, no. It's a panel.
Okay, we'll jump in. All right.
Go ahead. Lead us off. I'm curious to see how you set it up.
All right. So for me, just looking at this from a storyteller's point of view, and I just want to add that it's interesting that professional storytellers are reacting to this differently than perhaps some of the commentary class. And I include beyond YouTube. I think there's a lot of political commentary about this that is also getting surprising slapback from the people they thought were going to support it, particularly in the conservative circles. A lot of conservative women are like, what are you talking about? That's not the movie I saw. Why are you telling us? Again, we'll get to setup and payoff. So but you have people like Ethan Van Sciver, very popular comic book artist, has dedicated his public persona and is, to fighting extreme leftist messaging and storytelling. He essentially lost his job as a professional comic book artist and had to become an independent artist because he wouldn't back down on resisting that political messaging in the comic book industry, and became a kind of martyr and a hero to a lot of people. and then as a result, and he came out with the same analysis that I did. He did very extensive analysis on Twitter, and then did YouTube videos explaining why he loved Barbie. And people were shocked by that because he's a pretty right-wing guy. He's more right-wing than I am, right? People consider me relatively conservative, and he's out there proudly that, and he's like, you guys don't get the story. As a storyteller, he was actually the same emotional anger that I had when people kept saying, why do you keep writing about this on reviews and Patreon? Why do you keep talking about it? Because as a storyteller, I was upset that people weren't getting the story, in my opinion. So let's look at story, okay? Let's look at so what's interesting about this movie is that it is very much. Well, number one, let's classify genre, I think, before we even get into story structure. I think genre.
Okay.
I'm of the opinion. So why don't we start a conversation first on genre, and then we'll make it broader and get more and more specific. So let's start with genre. Okay. I believe this movie is a satire. I use that phrase. I think yes, I believe it is a satire on the level of Dr. Strangelove, on the level of Blazing Saddles, and I would even put it on the level of the Pink Panther movies, which are more absurdist comedy, but they do actually have social commentary in them. Right, and through Inspector Clouseau's silliness, he plays the holy fool that shows us the silliness of the world. Right, I think that is what is trying to be done here. And if someone is already approaching this not understanding that it is a satire, it's like watching Pink Panther going, oh, this movie is an offensive movie that makes cops look like morons. All cops are bad. ACAB, defund the police. That's what they're trying to say. If you take that movie on the surface, it's cops are buffoons, but that's not what the movie is saying, right? Any more than you've got Dr. Strangelove is not a pro-militaristic movie, nor is even though it appears to be, and nor is Blazing Saddles a pro-racism movie. It's about commentary about race, amongst many other things. So let's start with a conversation about genre and perceptions about genre, and then maybe start lasering in. I'll open it up to the panel.
So I wrote South Park. South Park has really silly, absurd plot lines, and I wrote down Team America, things that have commentary, but aren't taking themselves too seriously. They're playing. So one of the big things for me that separated where I thought I was going to be from where I was is in terms of genre and satire. I think this is a special kind of satire. I realized at some point that these were the storytellers were playing with Barbies on screen. This was play space. They're playing. And I think even though there's political messaging or political terms that would normally kind of set me off or make me go, I don't know what they're trying to say. I never got that because all of that was subordinated to the playing. They were always playing in this film. And it's funny because I watched by luck. You talk about some of the people commenting in a negative light or not getting it. Or I was watching South Park the other day, the one with Margarine, where the girls had one of those things that that tell the future.
The fortune.
I think they even have that in this movie. I think Weird
did.
Barbie has something like that. Yeah.
They did have that. So the boys were watching the girls play with this, and the boys took this really seriously. They had to infiltrate the girls group with Butters by dressing him up as a girl, and so the girls took this as fun and lighthearted and silly and trying to enjoy it. While the guys were taking this as no one should have this power. We need to destroy it. I feel like that's where you might be getting some people missing. They're taking it too seriously when this is playing. Yeah. This is playtime.
And it's a very like self-aware movie too. Like it's funny because it's so like the tone is really interesting. It's so ridiculous and so silly, but then at the same time very real and human and like deep, like surprisingly deep. But it's doing both of those at the same time. And I think maybe that creates some disconnect for some people. I don't know. I mean, for me, I'm comfortable with something being very silly and deep at the same time. Well, but maybe that throws people off. I don't know.
They did certain things in the beginning of the movie, and then they consist about interacting with toys. The plastic doors you open in the fridge, the paper stickers, there's no water in the cups. That's playtime. That's what playtime is like, right? Especially it sounds like for girls who played with Barbies. And there was a scene that I didn't understand at first because everyone was laughing. The women were laughing. And I was like, what are they laughing at? And there's a scene where Margot Robbie is sitting down and she's not sitting right. And she slowly falls over and then she stretches out.
Which is what happens to a Barbie.
Like, Barbie does that.
What's a Barbie? You leave a Barbie sitting there.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my God.
On her face down because little girls leave the doll lying like that.
But that's interacting with toys. That's an homage to interacting with toys. And I think, because Barbie has meant different things to different generations. My mom's generation, she told me stories about Barbie and how she couldn't get one. She had to go to her friend's house to play. My sister and in the 80s and 90s, and then what it means today and some of the backlash. So but playing with Barbie is the one through line through all of that. And I think that this film understood that.